So the 40th anniversary of the Convention on Migratory Species, it's a cause for celebration that we've had this convention for this period of time, and it seems like a long time to the average human. It's a career, but for some animals it's less than half their lifetime. Elephants live to 65 or 70, giant tortoises for a couple of hundred years. So we must keep our perspective broad, and that's particularly important with the species that I study. So 43 years ago I started my research in Africa looking at mountain gorillas, and then I went on to study elephants. And gorillas and elephants are fascinating to us because they share many of our characteristics. With gorillas, it's actually their anatomy and our evolutionary relationship. With elephants, it's elements of their society and their behavior and their self-awareness which fascinate us. But at this time, at a time of global awareness of species extinction, biodiversity loss and climate change, we're in a crisis. The CMS might seem to some a bit esoteric, but it's actually essential in our efforts to keep a functioning biosphere. Let's look at migratory birds, for example. In the UK, where I live most of the year, and in Europe, many bird watchers, many people in the countryside look at the arrival of cuckoos and swallows and swifts as harbingers of spring and summer. But those birds spend their winter months in Africa. I just recently learned that very close to the habitat of the cross river gorilla, the most endangered of the gorilla subspecies, there is a wintering roost of something like 20 million European barn swallows. For some it's a roost, for some it's a stopover on their way to southern Africa. So if we want to have swallows and swifts and cuckoos and corncrakes coming to the UK on their annual migration, they need to be able to feed up on the insects when they're in their wintering grounds. And where do those insects live and grow? They grow in the habitat of gorillas and forest elephants. So protecting elephants and apes is all part of protecting the biosphere in which we live. And I think we have to keep this global perspective. So happy birthday CMS, 40 years of extraordinary work safeguarding the habitat and flyways and swimways and migration routes of migratory species. But bear in mind that this is only one part of the jigsaw puzzle that is so essential today, because those tropical forests where the cuckoos and corncrakes spend their winter months when they're away from the UK and Europe are essential carbon stores. And the trees that sequester and store that carbon are of global importance. So studying these species is not just a matter of academic interest because they share some DNA with us or we admire their behavioural characteristics, but because they're part of that ecology. And protecting the forests of Africa and Asia, and of course in Latin America where different species are involved, we need to protect the animals, because the fruit-eating animals in particular are the ones who disperse the seeds. And we protect the animals today, we're actually protecting the trees of tomorrow. And if we want those forests to sequester and store carbon long into the future, they are essential to our efforts to prevent dangerous climate change. And therefore it's as important to protect the animals, the gardeners of the forest, as it is to protect the trees in the forest. So that's my message on the 40th anniversary of CMS. Think big, think global. We have to act locally, but think about the global ecosystem services that these ecosystems provide. Otherwise we haven't got a chance of preventing biodiversity loss and preventing dangerous climate change. We have to work together, and the CMS family that brings together nations to collaborate in conservation is central to that effort.